You know how sometimes the whispers in Hollywood start like background noise? And suddenly the volume turns up, the cameras focus, and everyone's heart skips a beat? That's what's happening right now. Over 400 of America's most recognizable stars, names like Jennifer Aniston, Tom Hanks, Ben Affleck, Meryl Streep, have come together to sign an open letter, organized by the ACLU, warning that what just happened to Jimmy Kimmel might be more than an isolated incident. They're saying this is a dark moment for freedom of speech and it's time to raise the alarm. It all began with a late-night monologue. Earlier this month, Jimmy Kimmel said something controversial, remarks about the fatal shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk that rubbed certain people the wrong way. Broadcasters including Sinclair and Nexstar and right-wing commentators loudly pushed back. The tension escalated, and then came the big move. ABC, part of the Disney empire, suspended Jimmy Kimmel Live indefinitely. Not just a slap on the wrist, pulled off the air, gone, just like that. That decision didn't happen in a vacuum. It followed threats, public statements from some government regulatory figures, including the head of the FCC, Brendan Carr, warning about potential retaliation, license revocations if media outlets didn't act. In other words, there was government pressure. Opinions, commentary, satire, things that aren't always comfortable, were facing direct suppression, or at least the threat of suppression. And when a private company like Disney bows to those threats, what are the implications? Cue the wave of outrage from the creative world. More than 400 actors, musicians, writers, directors, and other entertainment luminaries signed an open letter drafted by the ACLU. Aniston, Hanks, Affleck, Streep, those aren't names that show up in rumors, they're the icons. And their names now carry this message: we will not be silenced. The letter begins with a simple but powerful statement: we the people must never accept government threats to our freedom of speech. That line, it's not just rhetoric, but really it's a line in the sand. Because if government figures can threaten consequences, like losing your license or being dropped from the air, just for speech they deem inappropriate, controversial, or politically inconvenient, well, that opens a door toward censorship that's honestly far more dangerous than some might realize. The letter also warns that efforts to pressure artists, media companies, and creatives, strike at the heart of what it means to live in a free country. This moment is existential, not just about one show or one host, but about what rights and freedoms may be compromised if this trend continues unchallenged. What's especially dramatic is just how fast this moved. From Kimmel's remarks to calls for apologies, to broadcasters demanding retractions, to ABC pulling the plug, all in just a few days. Then the flood of signatures, social media posts, think pieces. One day it's a story about entertainment headlines, and the next it's about constitutional freedoms, government oversight of media, and whether partisan pressure was reshaping what people are actually allowed to say. For a lot in Hollywood, this isn't theoretical. Many actors, writers, comedians have felt pressure before. Be careful what you say, watch your tone, stay safe. But now, this event strips away the cushion. Maybe safe isn't enough. Maybe the cost of speaking honestly or satirizing public figures is bigger than we thought. Some pushback speech has consequences, networks have responsibilities, especially when remarks might inflame political division. That's valid. But when regulators are seen threatening license revocations, accountability shifts into suppression. This has also lit public debate. People ask, what is the role of media regulators in a free democracy? To what extent should networks self-censor? What does it mean when a private company removes a show due to government threats? Is that self-censorship? A slippery slope where artists hold back, writers avoid sensitive topics, hosts steer clear of satire, narrowing public discourse. The involvement of the ACLU really underscores the gravity here. This isn't just Hollywood complaining, it's legal territory now. Constitutional experts are seeing some pretty clear parallels to past eras, when government pressures actually silenced dissent. And, the references in the letter to McCarthy-era repression, those are intentional reminders. It's a way of saying history can repeat itself if vigilance fails. One unusual point is that the letter actually cuts across political lines. Signatories come from, well, regardless of political affiliation or whether they engage in politics or not. And honestly, a lot of these stars aren't usually political, but they still feel compelled to stake a public position here. It really signals that the fear is broader than just left versus right. It's about protecting media, art, comedy, spaces where people can speak, critique, challenge, and, yeah, even offend. Public reaction was honestly swift. Social media just exploded. Opinion columns everywhere debated ABC and Disney's call. Protesters even gathered outside Disney offices in Burbank. And after a few days of all that pressure, Jimmy Kimmel Live was reinstated. But at what cost? Were conditions attached? Exactly who pressured whom? The details, well, they remain murky. The reinstatement doesn't erase concerns. Will Kimmel avoid controversial topics now? Will networks be quicker to pull the plug? Will hosts self-censor? Sometimes the silence of controversial voices is passive. Writers self-censor. Producers decline risky projects. It's subtle, but honestly, it's powerful over time. This letter becomes more than a statement supporting Kimmel. It's a warning shot. You mess with one artist, you mess with all artists. It's really about defending democracy, not just comedy or art. The ability of citizens to hear dissenting voices, challenge narratives, and have spaces where politics, power, and culture intersect without fear. What happens next will be watched closely. Will Disney set new policies on what hosts can say? Will regulators clarify limits? Will creators feel emboldened or silenced? Even with the show back, the story doesn't end here. At the end of the day, this is about more than Jimmy Kimmel. It's about living in a society where you can speak, joke, critique, and know that the cost of silence is higher than the discomfort of speech. It's a moment where arts, media, and public conscience meet at a crossroads. So, what do you think? Is this letter virtue signaling or a necessary stand for principle? Is the reinstatement enough? Or do we need stronger guardrails for free speech? Drop your thoughts below. If this story matters to you, hit that like button. Follow for more news where Hollywood meets rights, power, and public debate. And subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter, because this isn't over, not by a long shot.